If someone had asked me a year ago what the hardest part of motherhood was, I would have given a predictable answer: late night fevers, forgotten homework, teenage moods that rose and fell like tides. I never imagined my answer would someday become discovering that the child you raised had been living a hidden life right under your roof, praying you wouldn't notice. IT began so quietly, I almost missed it. My daughter, Emily, had always been expressive, cheerful, and endlessly creative. Our house usually echoed with her music, her laughter, and the sound of pencils scratching across sketchbooks she never let anyone read. But as her final school term approached, something shifted. Emily became withdrawn, guarded, almost haunted. She clutched her phone like it contained her last heartbeat, flinched whenever I entered her room, and wrapped herself in oversized hoodies regardless of the weather. I told myself it was normal. Senior year was stressful. College applications were exhausting. Teenagers changed. It was part of the deal. Still, uneasiness lingered like a low hum in the back of my mind. The moment everything tilted happened on an ordinary Saturday. I was gathering laundry, humming to myself, when a small brown paper bag slipped from beneath Emily's bed. Inside was a single receipt from a local pharmacy, one item listed: a pregnancy test. My breath caught. For a full minute, I couldn't move. My thoughts scattered, refusing to land on anything solid. Emily? My careful, anxious, soft-hearted Emily. Images flooded me. The hoodies, the skipped meals, the sleepless nights, the trembling whispers through her closed door. Signs I hadn't understood suddenly rearranged themselves into something unmistakable. I placed the bag back exactly where it had fallen, my hands colder than the floor beneath me. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed to know more before I shattered the fragile calm hanging between us. That entire day, Emily drifted through the house pretending everything was normal. But each forced smile, each overly casual answer, only tightened the knot forming inside my chest. By evening, one truth pressed heavier than the rest. My daughter wasn't just hiding something, she was terrified of me discovering it, and whatever she was carrying, it was already changing both our lives in ways I couldn't yet see. That night, long after the house had settled into its usual creaks and sighs, I lay awake replaying every moment from the past few months. Each memory felt different now, as if it had been quietly rewritten while I wasn't paying attention. Emily's sudden headaches, her skipped breakfasts, the hollow look in her eyes when she thought I wasn't watching. It all seemed connected in a way I wished it wasn't. Sleep wouldn't come. My mind kept circling back to the brown paper bag hidden under her bed. A single receipt, so small and silent, yet heavy enough to rattle the entire foundation of our home. I wondered how long she had been carrying this weight alone. How many nights she had cried without a sound. How terrified she must be to face something so enormous while keeping it trapped behind her ribs. Around midnight, I heard the faint creak of her bedroom door. Soft footsteps drifted down the hallway toward the kitchen. I stayed still at first, unsure if I should give her space or follow. But instinct eventually pulled me from my bed. I stepped quietly into the hall, watching her silhouette standing by the refrigerator light, her hands trembling as she poured a glass of water. She looked so small in that moment, swallowed by her oversized hoodie, shoulders curved inward as if protecting a secret she feared would destroy her. I wanted to reach out, to gather her against me the way I used to when nightmares woke her as a child. But something in her eyes stopped me. It wasn't defiance. It was fear, pure, fragile fear. Emily, I whispered softly. She flinched, nearly dropping the glass. Oh, Mom. I didn't mean to wake you. Her voice quivered despite her attempt to steady it. I stepped closer, but kept my tone gentle. I just wanted to check on you. You haven't seemed yourself lately. She froze, her breath catching as though the words pressed against a door she wasn't ready to open. For a moment, I thought she might tell me everything right then. But the moment passed. She forced a smile too thin to believe. Just school stuff. Ai fine. Her lie hovered between us, delicate yet impenetrable, and as she slipped back into her room, closing the door with heartbreaking softness, I realized the truth wasn't hiding from me. IT was trapped inside her, begging to be found before it was too late. The next morning arrived heavier than the last. Sunlight pressed through the curtains, but it did nothing to lift the hollow feeling growing inside my chest. Emily moved through the house quietly, avoiding my eyes as if a single glance might crack open the secret she was fighting to hold together. I watched her pour cereal she didn't eat, nod absently when I asked routine questions, and slip out the door for school before I could offer a ride. Once she left, the silence in the house became unbearable. I paced the kitchen, replaying her trembling voice, the way her hands had clutched her hoodie, the way fear flickered across her face before she forced herself to smile. Something in me knew this wasn't just teenage confusion. It was deeper, darker, the kind of burden no 17-year-old should be carrying alone. I found myself standing outside her bedroom door. For a moment, I hesitated. It felt wrong to enter her space without permission, yet the memory of that pharmacy receipt tugged at me like a hand refusing to let go. After several long breaths, I pushed the door open. Her room was tidy, almost too tidy, as if she had been desperately trying to hide chaos beneath neatness. Papers were stacked perfectly. Her bed was made with rigid edges. But on her desk, half buried beneath a stack of notebooks, I spotted a small folded piece of paper. I didn't intend to read it. Truly, I didn't. But the moment I saw her handwriting, shaky and uneven, my heart tightened. IT was a note addressed to someone named Tyler. I unfolded the paper slowly. I don't know what to do anymore. I'm scared all the time. I don't want to keep lying, but I can't tell her yet. I need more time. Please don't disappear on me now. My fingers trembled as I held the note. A name. A plea. A glimpse into the fear she had been carrying in silence. My mind raced. Who was Tyler? A friend? Someone older? Someone who knew the truth I didn't. Before I could gather my thoughts, my phone buzzed. A message from the school. Emily had missed her first class. The note slipped from my hand as dread surged through me. Emily wasn't just hiding a secret. She was running out of ways to hold it together. And now, she was missing. I drove to the school faster than I should have, my pulse pounding with every mile. Emily never skipped class. Not once. Even on days when she felt sick, she insisted on going, afraid of falling behind. So the idea of her simply vanishing from campus felt unreal, like someone had swapped my daughter with a stranger I didn't recognize. When I reached the building, the hallways buzzed with the usual chatter, lockers slamming, teachers hurrying to start the day. Everything was normal, except my daughter was nowhere within it. The attendance clerk confirmed she hadn't checked in at all. Her homeroom teacher frowned, saying Emily had seemed distracted lately, but skipping school? Completely unlike her, she murmured. I nodded, unable to speak around the tightness growing in my throat. Outside, I sat in my car gripping the steering wheel, trying to steady my breathing. I replayed the note I'd found. Tyler. I'm scared. I need more time. What kind of fear made a girl like Emily hide from everyone, even me? And where would she go if she felt cornered by secrets too heavy for her shoulders? Instinct urged me to call her, but she wouldn't answer. I knew that already. Instead, I tried something different. I opened her last text thread, hoping for a clue. Most conversations were normal, friends, homework, school events. But one contact stood out. No name, no profile picture, just an initial, T. Their messages were short, scattered, and increasingly tense. We need to talk. I can't keep doing this. You promised you'd help me. Are you backing out? The most recent one, sent late last night, made my stomach twist. I'm scared. Please answer. I stared at the screen, the words blurring as fear pressed harder against me. Whoever T was, they were tied to her disappearance. Did Emily go to meet them? Was she safe? Or was she more alone than ever? Just then, my phone buzzed. For a heartbeat, hope surged. Emily. But it wasn't her. It was a number I didn't recognize. A single message appeared. We need to talk about your daughter. Before things get worse. No name. No explanation. My breath caught as I read it again. The world narrowing to that one chilling sentence. Someone out there knew the truth Emily had been hiding, and now they were coming to me. The unknown message sat on my screen like a threat I couldn't decipher. My hands felt numb as I stared at it, debating whether to reply or block the number altogether. Before I could decide, another message appeared, sharper than the first. Emily isn't where you think she is. If you want to help her, don't ignore me. My heart lurched. I dialed the number instantly, barely aware of my own trembling fingers. The call rang twice before someone answered. At first, all I heard was breathing, uneven, fast, young. Then a shaky voice whispered, "Mrs. Carter?" Every muscle in my body tensed. Who is this? A long silence followed, stretched tight with fear and uncertainty. It's Tyler, he finally said, barely audible. The name hit me like a jolt. Emily's note. Her message thread. The secret carved into her sleepless nights. I gripped the phone harder. Where's my daughter? Why did she skip school? What happened? I'm trying to help, he said quickly. But it's complicated. Emily wasn't ready to tell you. She didn't want to disappoint you. His voice cracked, and something about that tremor made my anger soften into dread. What does that mean? I pressed another pause. She's scared. She thinks you'll hate her when you find out. A wave of helplessness washed over me. I could never hate my daughter. Tell me where she is. I can't, he whispered. Not yet. She made me promise. My frustration spiked. Then why contact me at all? His breath hitched, as if he were wrestling with something inside himself. Because she's not okay, and I don't know what to do anymore. She's been getting sick. She fainted this morning. That's why she didn't go to class. A cold chill crawled down my spine. She fainted? Yes, he murmured. She said it happens a lot lately. She won't go to a doctor. She's terrified someone will find out. My pulse hammered. The pieces fit too neatly now. Her exhaustion, her late nights, her oversized clothes, the hidden receipt. Is she pregnant? I asked, voice barely a whisper. Tyler didn't speak. He didn't have to. The thick silence said everything. I closed my eyes, breath trembling. Where is she now? She's at my place, he said softly. But she's resting. I thought you should know before things get worse. His fear was real. His worry wasn't fabricated. And despite everything, one truth rose above the rest. Emily hadn't disappeared. She had run somewhere she felt safe, which meant something even harder to swallow. She hadn't felt safe with me. Driving toward Tyler's address felt like moving through thick fog, every turn heavier than the last. The morning light stretched across the windshield, but it did nothing to settle the worry twisting deeper inside me. Emily had fainted. She had skipped school. And instead of coming home, she had gone somewhere she believed I couldn't follow. That hurt more than anything else. The idea that fear, not trust, guided her feet away from me. Tyler lived in a narrow apartment above an old hardware store, the kind of place where every stair creaked like it carried the memory of all who climbed it. I paused at the top, breathing in the faint smell of dust and paint before knocking. When the door opened, Tyler stood there, shoulders tight, eyes tired in a way no teenager's eyes should ever look. She's resting, he said before I even asked. She just needs a little time. His living room was small but neat, as if he had rushed around trying to make it presentable. A soft light glowed from the bedroom down the hall, and something about that warm glow made my heart ache. Emily had come here because she felt safe, and realizing that stung far more than anger ever could. She fainted this morning. Tyler continued quietly. She panicked after. She said she didn't want you to see her like that. The words hit hard. Why would she think that? He hesitated, rubbing the back of his neck. She thinks you'll be disappointed. She keeps saying she ruined everything. I told her she needs to talk to you, but she's terrified. I swallowed the tightness in my throat. How long has she known? A little over a month, he said. She's been sick a lot. She barely sleeps. She told me she's scared every day. She doesn't want to lose you. Lose me. The thought hollowed something inside my chest. How had she convinced herself that one mistake, one frightening, overwhelming mistake, would erase all the years I spent loving her, protecting her? I want to see her, I said. Tyler stepped aside softly, as if opening a door to something fragile. Emily lay curled beneath a blanket, cheeks pale, breath slow and uneven. Seeing her like that broke something in me I didn't realize was holding on. I reached for her hand, brushing my thumb across her knuckles. Did I end that quiet room? One truth settled painfully in my heart. My daughter didn't need judgment. She needed me, and this time I wouldn't fail her. Emily stirred almost an hour later, her eyelids fluttering the way they did when she used to fight waking up for school. But this time there was no sleepy innocence behind it, only exhaustion carved into her features. When her eyes finally opened and landed on me, she froze. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The room felt suspended, like even the air knew this was a moment neither one of us could run from. Mom, she whispered, her voice thin and unsure. I offered a soft smile, one I hoped didn't reveal how my heart trembled. I'm here, sweetheart. Her lips parted, then closed again, as if she had to swallow every fear before speaking. I didn't want you to find out like this. I reached for her hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. I wish you had told me sooner. But I'm not here to be angry. I'm here because you're my daughter. Tears immediately welled in her eyes, spilling faster than she could wipe them away. I thought you'd be disappointed in me. Disappointed? I echoed, stunned by how deeply the word hurt. Emily, being scared isn't something to be ashamed of. Facing something huge alone, that's what scares me. She pressed her palms to her face, shoulders shaking. I didn't know what to do. Tyler tried helping, but I kept panicking. Everything felt like it was closing in. I brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. You're not alone anymore. At my words, her breath hitched, a quiet, painful sound. She lowered her hands and looked at me, really looked, as if searching for any trace of judgment. Finding none, she finally let herself collapse into the moment. Tyler lingered in the doorway, unsure if he should stay or slip away. Emily glanced at him, then back at me. He's been the only person I could talk to, she said softly. I nodded at him. Thank you for looking after her. He swallowed hard. I just want her to be okay. Emily shifted slightly, wincing at a sudden discomfort. That tiny movement jolted me with fresh urgency. We need to take you to a doctor, I said gently. Not later. Now. Fear flickered again in her eyes, but she didn't pull away. Instead, she whispered, will you stay with me the whole time? I squeezed her hand. Always. And for the first time in weeks, she believed me. The ride to the clinic felt strangely quiet, as if the world outside had lowered its volume out of respect for the fear sitting between us. Emily rested against the window, her breath fogging the glass in uneven patches. She didn't cry, but her eyes stayed glossy, holding back more emotion than she could voice. I kept glancing at her, wishing I could lift the worry from her shoulders and carry it myself, but motherhood didn't work that way. Love didn't erase fear. It only insisted you walk through it together. When we arrived, the waiting room's soft hum of voices wrapped around us. Emily sat close beside me, her fingers gripping the sleeve of my jacket, grounding herself in the small connection. Every few seconds, she pulled in a shaky breath, the kind people make when they're preparing for answers they aren't sure they can survive hearing. I wanted to tell her she was stronger than she believed, but I sensed she needed silence more than reassurance, and Nurse finally called her name, and Emily stood slowly, almost reluctantly. I rose with her, slipping my arm around her back. She didn't protest. Inside the small exam room, she perched on the edge of the paper-covered table, her shoulders tight, her gaze fixed on the floor. When the doctor entered and introduced herself, Emily nodded politely, but her voice seemed to vanish. I answered most of the initial questions for her, careful not to speak over her but ready to step in whenever her breath caught. The doctor spoke gently, explaining what would happen, and I watched Emily's fingers tighten around the hem of her hoodie. She finally whispered, "I'm scared something is wrong," and though the words were barely audible, the doctor heard her. "We're going to take care of you," she said in a warm, steady tone. "Whatever is happening, you won't face it alone." As tests were prepared, Emily reached for my hand, squeezing so hard it surprised me. It wasn't fear alone in her grip. It was trust, hesitant but present, fragile but real. When the doctor stepped out, Emily leaned her head against my shoulder. For the first time, she let herself exhale without pretending to be strong. In that quiet room, I realized this wasn't only the beginning of answers, it was the beginning of us learning how to face them side by side. As we waited for the results, time stretched into something unrecognizable. Emily sat beside me in the small exam room, shoulders rounded, as though bracing herself against a storm no one else could see. Every few minutes, she tugged at the sleeve of her hoodie, a nervous motion she repeated without noticing. I watched her quietly, terrified of saying the wrong thing, terrified of the silence too. It felt as though a single word could shatter her all over again. When the doctor finally returned, her expression softened the moment she looked at Emily. She closed the door gently behind her, as if protecting the room from the weight of the world. "We ran the basic tests," she said, pulling up a stool. "And we do have some answers." Emily stiffened, her breath catching. I reached for her hand, not squeezing, just offering myself, hoping she would accept. After a long pause, she did, her fingers curling around mine with a tremble that made my heart ache. "You are pregnant," the doctor continued, speaking with careful calm. Emily nodded weakly, as if she had expected the words, but still felt the impact like a sudden blow. "But there's something else," the doctor added, glancing at her chart. "You're dehydrated, your iron is low, and your blood pressure is dropping. That's likely why you fainted." Emily's eyes filled instantly. "Is something wrong with the baby?" she whispered. "Right now, we're not seeing signs of immediate danger," the doctor assured her. "But you need rest, proper nutrition, and regular checkups. Ignoring these symptoms could put you at risk." Emily bowed her head, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. I slipped my arm around her shoulders, pulling her gently closer. For the first time, she didn't resist. She leaned in as though she had been waiting for permission to fall apart. "I'm sorry," she murmured brokenly. "I didn't know how to tell you. I was so scared." I smoothed her hair the way I used to when she was small. "You don't have to apologize for needing help," I said softly. You're not facing this alone anymore. The doctor stepped out to give us privacy. Emily's breathing hitched as she clung to me, a mix of relief and fear flooding through her. And in that fragile embrace, I understood something clear and painful. Love wasn't about preventing storms. It was about showing up when the storm finally broke. Leaving the clinic felt strangely unreal, as if the world outside had continued spinning while our lives had shifted into something entirely different. Emily walked beside me slowly, her steps careful, her expression distant. She held the small folder of instructions the doctor had given her, clutching it against her chest as though it might shield her from everything she feared. I wanted to speak, to ease the tension that wrapped around us like cold air, but the moment felt too delicate to disturb. When we reached the car, Emily hesitated before getting in. She stood with her hand on the door, eyes fixed on the pavement. "Mom," she said finally, her voice wavering, "are you mad at me?" The question hit harder than I expected. I stepped closer and gently touched her arm.
"Mel,
"Honey, I'm scared for you."
I'm worried."
"But angry?"
"No."
Not for a second. She looked up, uncertainty flickering across her face. "I didn't want you to think I ruined everything." "You didn't ruin anything," I said softly. "Your life isn't over. It's changing, yes, but that doesn't make you broken." Emily swallowed, blinking hard. She slid into the seat, and I followed, starting the engine as she quietly wiped her cheeks. The drive home was quiet except for her occasional sniffle, each one a small reminder of how fragile she still felt. When we arrived, she paused in the doorway of the house, as if unsure how to re-enter a place where her secret had once lived in shadows. I placed a hand on her back, guiding her gently inside. Tyler's note, the pharmacy receipt, the hints I had missed, they echoed in my mind, pieces of a puzzle I wished she hadn't had to assemble alone. She sat on the couch, pulling her knees close. "What happens now?" The question wasn't about schedules or appointments. It was about her future, about the fear of judgment, about the possibility that everything she imagined for herself had suddenly shifted direction. I sat beside her. "Now," I said slowly, "we take this one day at a time. We make a plan with the doctor. We figure out school together. And we tell the people who need to know, but only when you're ready." Emily leaned into me, resting her head on my shoulder. "Thank you for not leaving me." "I never will," I whispered, wrapping my arm around her. And in that moment, I meant it with every part of my heart. The afternoon passed with a heavy stillness that settled into every corner of the house. Emily stayed curled on the couch, wrapped in a blanket even though the room was warm. I moved quietly around her, giving her space while staying close enough that she would never doubt my presence. Every now and then she glanced at me, as if checking to see whether I had changed, whether my love had shifted under the weight of what we now knew. It hadn't. If anything, it felt stronger, sharper, fueled by the fear of how close I'd come to losing her trust entirely. Later, when the sun began dipping low, she whispered that she was hungry. The moment felt small, but I recognized it as a step, a gentle reaching toward normalcy. I made her something light, and she ate slowly, each bite careful, as though testing her body's reaction. When she finished, she set the plate aside and stared at her hands. "What if I can't do this?" she murmured. I sat beside her, letting silence linger before answering. "You don't have to do everything today. You only have to breathe today. We'll figure everything else out together." She leaned against me, her body soft with exhaustion. For a while we simply sat there, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the faint wind outside. Then she spoke again, quieter this time. "I think I should tell Tyler we're okay. He's been worrying too much." I nodded. "You can call him when you're ready." She didn't move toward her phone immediately. Instead, she looked at me with a vulnerability so open it nearly broke me. Mom, are you really not going to hate me? My heart tightened. Sweetheart, love doesn't disappear because life gets complicated. Her eyes filled again, but she didn't cry. She simply breathed, slow and steady. As darkness settled, Emily rested quietly beside me, her grip soft but certain. I brushed her hair gently, feeling her finally begin to relax. Whatever waited for us, we would face it together, one steady breath at a time. She didn't speak again, but she didn't need to. The quiet between us felt different now, less like fear and more like the beginning of trust returning. I held her close, knowing this moment would shape everything that came next. We stayed. Evening settled softly over the house, but the quiet felt different now, no longer heavy with fear, but cautious, tender, newly forming. Emily had fallen asleep on the couch not long after dinner, her breathing steady at last. I didn't move her. I simply covered her with a blanket and sat nearby, letting the dim lamplight cast warm shadows around us. For the first time in weeks, she looked peaceful, her face relaxed, no longer tightened by secrets she'd been forced to carry alone. Watching her like that filled me with a strange mix of relief and sadness. She'd been suffering right in front of me, and I had missed every sign until the truth nearly broke her. After a while, her phone buzzed on the table, a soft vibration that made her stir but not wake. I hesitated before reaching for it, not to invade her privacy, but to silence it before it startled her. Tyler's name glowed on the screen, followed by a brief message. Is she okay? Please tell me she's okay. His worry was unmistakable, the kind that didn't come from guilt, but from genuine care. I placed the phone back, knowing she would respond when she had the strength. As I watched her sleep, I felt the weight of the path ahead. Doctors, decisions, long conversations, the careful rebuilding of trust. None of it would be simple, but nothing truly important ever was. I understood then that motherhood wasn't about preventing pain. It is about standing steady when the storm finally revealed itself. Emily shifted, her hand slipping out from beneath the blanket. I reached out and held it gently, surprised when her fingers curled around mine even in sleep. That small gesture tightened something deep inside me, a reminder that she still needed me, maybe now more than ever. When she finally opened her eyes, they held none of the panic I'd seen earlier. Just tiredness, soft and honest. How long was I asleep? She whispered. Only a little while, I said. You needed it. She nodded, sitting up slowly. I want to talk to Tyler. But can you stay with me while I call? Of course, I answered. She took a breath, then another, gathering courage the way someone gathers warm blankets on a cold night. When she dialed, her hand trembled, but she didn't let go of mine. As the phone began to ring, she leaned closer, voice barely above a whisper. Thank you for not giving up on me. I squeezed her hand gently. I never will. Emily held the phone to her ear, her breathing tight as the call finally connected. For a moment, neither she nor Tyler spoke, and the silence stretched thin, trembling like a thread ready to snap. Then his voice came through, soft and worried.
Ing?
Are you okay? Hearing him seemed to break something open inside her. She swallowed hard, gripping my hand while trying to steady her voice.
I'm all right.
My mom's here with me. Tyler exhaled sharply, the sound full of relief. I was scared. You weren't answering, and I didn't know what happened. Emily glanced at me before replying. I fainted. My mom took me to the clinic. They said I need to take better care of myself. Her tone wavered, not with fear this time, but with the vulnerability of someone finally stepping into honesty. I'm really glad you're safe, Tyler said. I didn't know if calling her was the right thing, but I couldn't just do nothing. Emily's gaze softened. It was the right thing. I think, I think I needed someone to push me before everything got worse. They spoke gently for a while, their words stitching together the frayed edges of a situation that had nearly undone them both. When the call ended, Emily rested the phone in her lap and leaned her head against my shoulder. He didn't run, she whispered. I thought he would. People who care don't run, I said quietly. Sometimes they just don't know how to help until everything feels urgent. She nodded, absorbing the truth slowly. After a moment, she said, There's something else I need to tell you. My heart tightened, but I kept my expression calm. Whatever it is, you can tell me. She took a shaky breath. I wasn't hiding everything because I didn't trust you. I was hiding it because I didn't trust myself. I didn't think I could handle what was happening, and I thought telling you would make it real. Her voice trembled, but her eyes held steady, searching mine for judgment that wasn't there. I'm still scared, she admitted. I wrapped an arm around her and pulled her close. Being scared doesn't mean you're weak. It means you understand how important this is. And you don't have to face any of it alone. She clung to me then, not with panic, but with a fragile, growing strength. And for the first time, I felt hope replacing the fear that had shadowed us for so long. The next morning arrived with a cautious quiet, the kind that comes after a long night of difficult truths. Emily woke early, her movements slow but steadier than the day before. She sat at the kitchen table while I made breakfast, her fingers tracing small circles on the wood as though she were trying to settle her thoughts into a shape she could hold. When I placed a plate in front of her, she offered a faint, grateful smile before taking a careful bite. It wasn't much, but it was more than she had managed in days, and the small progress eased something tight inside my chest. After a few minutes, she said, I think I should tell the school counselor. I can't keep pretending everything's normal. Her voice trembled, but her words carried a determination I hadn't heard in her since all of this began. I nodded gently. That's a brave decision, Emily. You don't have to do it alone. I can go with you. She looked relieved, as though she had already been hoping I would offer. When we arrived at the school, the halls buzzed with ordinary life. Students laughing, lockers slamming, teachers calling out reminders. But for Emily, nothing about today was ordinary. She held my hand tightly as we approached the counselor's office. I felt her nerves through her grip, yet beneath them was a quiet courage building slowly. The counselor welcomed us warmly, guiding us inside with a soft smile. Emily sat down, folding her hands in her lap. Her breathing shook, but she didn't pull away when I sat beside her. I haven't been doing well, Emily began, her voice barely above a whisper. I've been hiding a lot, and it's been hurting me. The counselor listened carefully, her expression full of calm understanding. As Emily spoke, her words grew steadier, as though each truth lifted a weight off her shoulders. When she finished, the counselor nodded. Thank you for trusting me. We'll make a plan to support you. You're not alone in this. Emily exhaled shakily, and I saw something shift in her eyes. Relief, fragile but real. Walking back to the car afterward, she squeezed my hand. That was harder than I expected, she murmured, but I'm glad I did it. I'm proud of you, I said, meaning every word. For the first time in a long while, she smiled without forcing it. And in that small, hopeful expression, I saw the beginning of a path forward we could finally walk together. That afternoon, after the meeting with the counselor, Emily seemed lighter, though exhaustion still clung to her like a shadow that refused to fully step away. At home, she changed into comfortable clothes and curled up on the sofa with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. I brought her tea, and she accepted it with a quiet thank you, her voice soft but sincere. The house felt calmer than it had in weeks. For the first time, The silence didn't feel threatening. It felt healing. After a while, Emily looked up from her mug. Mom, can we talk about what happens next? Her tone was careful, as if she feared her own question. I sat beside her, giving her space to speak. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear before continuing. I don't know how to tell people. My friends, my teachers, even Tyler's parents. I'm scared they'll look at me differently. I took a slow breath. People might react in ways you don't expect, but none of them get to decide your worth. You get to decide who you become after this. And you won't be handling those conversations alone. She nodded, but uncertainty lingered. I don't want to disappoint anyone else. You're not disappointing anyone, I said firmly. You're facing something overwhelming, and you're doing it with more bravery than you realize. Emily leaned into me slightly, resting her head against my shoulder. I want to finish school. I don't want to give up everything I planned. You won't, I assured her. It might look different, but your dreams are still yours. After a moment, she whispered, Do you think Tyler will stay involved? I considered my words carefully. He cares about you. That's clear. But what matters most is what you need, not what anyone else decides. This is your life, your future. Emily let out a trembling sigh. I don't want to make the wrong choices. You won't, I said gently. Not as long as you're honest with yourself. She sat quietly, absorbing that. Then, almost unexpectedly, she said, I think I want to tell him everything tonight. Not just the basics. All of it. The fear, the hiding, the panic. She hesitated before adding, And I want you there. My heart softened. Of course. Whenever you're ready. Emily looked toward the window, watching the late afternoon light fade into a soft blue dusk. I'm starting to feel like maybe things won't fall apart, she murmured. Maybe they'll just change.
I smilte her.
Change can still lead somewhere good. And for the first time, she believed it enough to smile back. That evening, Emily sat beside me on the couch, her phone in her hands, her thumb hovering uncertainly over Tyler's contact. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the heater, and for a moment she simply stared at the screen, gathering herself. What if I say everything wrong? She whispered. I brushed her shoulder gently. Just speak honestly.
He cares about you.
He'll listen. She nodded, though doubt still flickered in her eyes like a candle unsteady in its flame. Finally, she pressed the call button, holding the phone to her ear with a shaky breath. When Tyler answered, his voice came through warm and relieved. Emily, are you okay? She swallowed hard. I'm trying to be. Can you come over? I want to talk. Really talk. There was no hesitation on his end. I'll be there in 10 minutes. When she hung up, she exhaled deeply, as if she had been holding that breath for days. Those 10 minutes felt strangely suspended. Emily paced the living room, wringing her hands, stopping every few steps to ask if she looked nervous. I told her the truth. She did, but that was normal. Nervousness meant she cared about the conversation ahead. When the doorbell finally rang, she froze. I offered her a small nod, and together we went to open the door. Tyler stood on the porch, his backpack slung over one shoulder, concern etched clearly across his face. Hi, he said softly. Emily stepped aside to let him in. We all sat in the living room, and she took a long moment before speaking. I need to tell you everything, she began, her voice trembling. Not just that I'm pregnant, not just that I was scared, but how lost I felt. Tyler listened with remarkable patience, his expression open and steady. She described the panic, the fainting, the way she had convinced herself she would lose everyone if the truth came out. Tears slipped down her cheeks, but she didn't stop. I should have told you sooner, she said. I didn't know how. Tyler reached out, placing his hand gently over hers. "You're allowed to be scared," he said. "I'm not going anywhere. We'll figure this out together." Emily looked at me then, as if checking whether she was allowed to accept his comfort. I nodded. She leaned forward and cried into her hands, not from fear this time, but from the quiet relief that comes when the truth finally stops hiding. Emily wiped her face slowly, as though each tear she brushed away made more space for the relief she had been denying herself. Tyler sat beside her, patient and steady, giving her room to breathe between words. The room felt softer somehow, as if the weight of secrecy that once hovered in every corner had finally begun to loosen. For the first time since all of this began, the air didn't feel fragile. It felt honest. "I didn't think you'd stay," Emily murmured, her voice thin but sincere. "I thought once you knew everything, you'd run." Tyler shook his head immediately. "I wouldn't run from you. Not when you need someone the most." His certainty didn't come off as forced or dramatic. It was simple, steady, and true, and Emily absorbed it with a trembling breath. I watched the two of them quietly, giving them space while remaining close enough to anchor Emily if she faltered. Every so often she glanced my way, almost as if checking that I approved of her trusting him. And every time, I offered a gentle nod to remind her she didn't have to choose between us. Support wasn't limited. It could expand after a while. Tyler asked softly, "How are you feeling now?" "Really feeling?" Emily hesitated, then answered, still scared, but not as alone. The words were small but powerful, and even she seemed surprised by how true they sounded. She straightened slightly, wiping the last of her tears. "I know things won't magically get easy, but talking helped." Tyler leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "We can make a plan. For school, appointments, everything. You won't have to figure it out alone." His voice held such earnest determination that it touched me more deeply than I expected. He was young, yes, but he cared in a way that felt genuine. Emily took a deep breath, then reached out and squeezed his hand. "Thank you for not giving up on me." Her voice cracked, but this time from gratitude rather than fear. The room was quiet again, but it was a warmer silence, one shaped by understanding rather than uncertainty. Emily rested back into the couch, exhaustion settling in now that the emotional storm had passed. Tyler stayed beside her, his presence a gentle reassurance. I placed a blanket over her lap, brushing her hair softly. For the first time, the future didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a path, difficult, yes, but walkable. Together, step by careful step, Emily grew quieter as the evening settled in, though her silence no longer held the same sharp fear it once carried. Instead, it felt thoughtful, almost reflective, as if she were trying to sort through everything that had finally come into the open. Tyler stayed for a while longer, sitting beside her with the kind of patience that didn't need words to feel steady. Every now and then he looked at her with gentle concern, and each glance seemed to reassure her that he meant what he had promised earlier. Eventually, he stood to leave, offering her a soft smile. "I'll check on you tomorrow. Text me if you need anything." She nodded, returning the smile with a tired but genuine one of her own. After he left, the house felt unusually calm. Emily curled up beside me on the couch, resting her head on my shoulder. "I feel different," she whispered. "Not fixed, just lighter." I wrapped an arm around her. "That's what truth does. It makes space to breathe." She took a deep breath, holding it for a moment before letting it out slowly. "I'm still scared about everything," she admitted. "School, the future, telling more people." "Fear doesn't mean you're not capable," I said. "It just means you understand the weight of what's ahead. And you're not carrying it alone anymore." Emily shifted, looking up at me with eyes that held both uncertainty and a growing strength. Do you think I'll be able to do this? Yes, I answered immediately. Because you're already doing it. She leaned into me again, letting the comfort settle. For the first time, she didn't seem to be bracing for something to go wrong. She simply existed in the moment, letting it hold her without fear. As the night deepened, she whispered, "Thank you for staying." I kissed her forehead softly. Always. And for the first time, always felt like a promise we were both ready to believe. The next morning arrived with a soft gray light filtering through the curtains, and for the first time in weeks, Emily didn't rush to hide behind her hoodie or retreat into silence. She moved slowly but with intention, as if each step she took was part of reclaiming herself. I watched from the kitchen as she poured a small bowl of cereal, pausing once when a wave of dizziness made her grip the counter. I hurried toward her, but she steadied herself before I reached her. "I'm okay," she said gently. "Just moving too fast." Her voice sounded different, tired but present, no longer clouded by secrecy. We sat together at the table, the morning quiet except for the soft clink of her spoon. After a moment, she looked at me thoughtfully. "I've been thinking," she said, "about how everything has changed, about how I've changed." I nodded, giving her space to continue. She traced a finger along the rim of her bowl. "I used to feel like telling the truth would ruin everything. But now it feels like maybe the truth is what's keeping me together." I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. Truth gives us something solid to stand on, even when it scares us. Emily's eyes softened, and for a moment she simply breathed, letting the quiet settle comfortably between us. Later, she went to her room to rest, and I found myself wandering the hallway, reflecting on how far we'd come. Just days ago, I was searching for her, terrified of what I would find. Now she was under our roof again, safe, supported, slowly rebuilding her sense of peace. In the early afternoon, she emerged with her sketchbook tucked under her arm. "I think I want to draw again," she said shyly. I stopped because everything felt too heavy. I smiled. "Then draw. Let it help you heal." She settled on the couch, knees tucked beneath her, pencil moving in soft strokes. Watching her return to something she loved filled the room with a warmth I hadn't felt in ages. Every line she sketched seemed to weave her back into herself. After a while, she lifted the page toward me. It was a drawing of two hands, one small, one larger, intertwined. "It's us," she said quietly. "How I felt yesterday. Like I wasn't falling anymore." Emotion caught in my throat. "It's beautiful, sweetheart." Emily smiled, a soft, real smile. And in that moment, I understood. Healing didn't have to be loud. Sometimes it was a pencil on paper, a hand in yours, a breath taken without fear. The days that followed moved gently, as if life itself understood we needed softness after so much fear. Emily woke each morning with a little more steadiness, a little more light returning to her eyes. She kept drawing, filling page after page with quiet expressions of everything she had been too overwhelmed to say aloud. Sometimes her sketches were shaky, sometimes confident, but each one carried a piece of her healing. I watched her rediscover herself with a mixture of pride and awe. One afternoon, she sat beside me on the porch steps, her sketchbook resting on her knees. The air was cool, touched with the scent of cut grass and the faint warmth of fading sunlight. "I've been thinking a lot," she said softly, "about what's coming, about being a mom someday." The old fear flickered in her voice, but it no longer controlled her. It was simply something she acknowledged, like a shadow she had finally learned wasn't as strong as her own strength. I wrapped my arm around her. "You don't need every answer today," I reminded her. "All you need is the courage to keep moving forward. And you have that." She leaned into me, resting her head against my shoulder. I still feel scared, she murmured. But I don't feel alone anymore. And that makes everything feel possible. A quiet settled over us, warm and full. She flipped open her sketchbook and revealed her newest drawing. It was a small, delicate image of a growing sprout emerging from the soil, fragile, but reaching toward the sun with surprising determination. This is how I feel right now, she whispered. Not finished, not sure, but growing. The simplicity of it cut straight through me. It's perfect, I said. Just like you. As the sky deepened into evening, Emily closed her sketchbook and took my hand.
Thank you, she said.
For finding me, for not giving up, for helping me breathe again. Emotions swelled in my chest, too full for words. I squeezed her hand gently. You saved yourself by telling the truth. I just walked with you. She smiled, a real, bright smile that looked like the beginning of something new. And in that moment, I knew our journey wasn't ending. It was only shifting into its next chapter, one we would face together, step by shaky step, heart by hopeful heart.